When an 8-year-old cancer patient sang a song she wrote called God, Hold My Voice, even the millionaire doctor who'd stopped believing in miracles broke down in tears. What happened next left an entire hospital and millions online, speechless.
Hello, if you're ready to hear the whole story, click subscribe and tap the notification bell. Type in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as touching as this one, or maybe even crazier. And you don't want to miss it. Now let's begin.
The sun had not yet risen over Beacon, New York. The Hudson River carried a soft grey mist, curling around the sleeping town like breath in winter. Inside St. Barrow's Hospital, the children's ward glowed dimly, a sanctuary for fragile hearts still learning to hope. In room 214, Jenna Clinton stirred before dawn. Her voice, small, delicate, and trembling, drifted through the cracked door. She sang quietly so as not to wake her mother. God, hold my voice till you're ready to hear me. It wasn't just a song. It was a prayer. Her IV beeped in rhythm with the melody, steady, patient, like a metronome for faith. Outside, a nurse paused in the hallway, listening. A janitor stopped sweeping. There was something hauntingly pure about the way Jenna sang, like she was trying to reach heaven before her breath gave out. Down the road, in a glass-walled office overlooking the same river, Dr. Max Ripley sat in silence. The world called him a miracle worker, the surgeon who rebuilt lives and owned half the clinics in the Hudson Valley. But to Max, the word miracle had long since died. On his desk sat an unopened file stamped Beacon Children's Charity Ward Review and Recommendation. He stared at it as if it were a ghost. The charity hospital was underfunded, outdated, and yet year after year he quietly covered its bills. No one knew, not even his investors. He told himself it was business, but the truth was simpler. He couldn't stop saving what reminded him of the daughter he'd lost. Outside, snow fell in hesitant flakes. Max checked his watch, sighed, and loosened his tie. His assistant had scheduled a brief courtesy visit to St. Barrow's before lunch. He didn't want to go. Hospitals, for him, were no longer sanctuaries. They were graveyards that smelled of bleach and memory. In room 214, Jenna's song ended. She looked at the ceiling tiles, whispering something no one else heard. Her mother, Emily Clinton, stirred beside her. "Couldn't sleep again?" she asked softly. Jenna smiled, her eyes brighter than her frail body suggested. "I had a dream," she whispered. "God was holding a basket of songs, and he said he wasn't done collecting mine yet." Emily forced a smile, brushing hair from her daughter's face. "Then you'd better give him a few more." Jenna grinned. "I'm working on a second verse." She reached for a small worn notebook, its pages filled with lyrics, drawings, and prayers. Her handwriting wobbled, but every word glowed with childlike faith. By noon, Dr. Max Ripley stood in the cold lobby of St. Barrow's Hospital, trying to remember the last time he'd walked into a place like this without wearing surgical scrubs. The walls were old, the floors creaked, and the faint hum of a broken heater filled the silence. Nurse Callan greeted him nervously. "Dr. Ripley, we didn't expect you this early." He nodded curtly. "I won't be long, just observing." They walked through the children's wing. Laughter and soft crying blended into the sterile air. The smell of disinfectant hit him like a déjà vu, too clean to be comforting. A small voice floated through the corridor, faint but unmistakable. Max paused. "God, hold my voice till you're ready to hear me." The melody was fragile, trembling, not practiced, not polished, but alive. Nurse Cullen stopped, her eyes softening. "That's Jenna. She sings every morning." Max frowned slightly. "Every morning?" "Yes. Says it helps her lungs, but—" Callan hesitated, her voice dropping. "We think it helps her heart more." Max turned toward the sound, his breath catching before he could explain why. Through the narrow window of room 214, he saw her, a small girl, bald from treatment, sunlight catching on the silver bracelet around her wrist. She was smiling, singing into a toy microphone as if it were the world's stage. Her mother watched, hands clasped, tears falling silently. For a moment, Max couldn't move. He told himself it was curiosity, a doctor's instinct, nothing more. But the truth was rawer. That song had reached somewhere he thought was dead. He turned away before anyone could see the shift in his face. "Let's move on," he muttered. But as they walked, the melody followed him down the hallway, echoing faintly, chasing him through the sterile corridors and into the silence of his thoughts. That night, long after he returned home, Max poured a drink he didn't want and stood by the window overlooking the river. The snow was still falling. And in the quiet hum of the city beyond, he could almost hear her voice again, fragile, steady, and utterly unafraid. He whispered the line without realizing it. "God, hold my voice." For the first time in years, his own voice cracked when he said it. Have you ever heard something so pure that it made you question everything you believed about life, faith, or even yourself? Tell me in the comments, what moment changed you?
The next morning at St. Barrow's was gray, the kind of morning where even the walls seemed tired. Nurses moved like ghosts through the corridor, soft shoes squeaking on polished floors. But from room 214 came a sound that refused to belong to the gloom. Jenna was rehearsing. Her small hand clutched a pink microphone connected to nothing, a toy wired only to imagination. Her voice cracked in places, but she didn't stop. Each note trembled like a leaf, but carried the faith of 1,000 sermons. "If I can't speak tomorrow, God, please hold my voice tonight." Emily Clinton sat at the edge of the bed, her eyes rimmed with exhaustion, but alight with awe. "Sweetheart," she whispered, "where do you learn words like that?" Jenna shrugged. "They just come. Maybe from the part of me that's not sick." Emily smiled faintly, blinking away tears. "Then keep singing from there." Down the hall, Dr. Max Ripley stood in the nurse's break room, sipping burnt coffee from a paper cup. He wasn't supposed to be here again. His visit the day before had been labeled informal, but something in him hadn't been able to stay away. He told himself it was professional, a follow-up for his report on the charity ward. But the truth was humming just beneath the surface, persistent as Jenna's melody. He caught Nurse Callan by the sink. "That girl, Jenna Clinton," he began, trying to sound casual. "She's been singing all morning?" Callan smiled sadly. "Every day she's strong enough to breathe, she sings. Says she wants God to remember her voice when she can't use it anymore." Max's jaw tensed. "And the song, she wrote it herself?" "Wrote it, titled it, performs it, the whole thing. She even asked the chaplain if God had a playlist." He almost smiled. Almost. But then Callan's tone shifted. "You know, she's been asking if someone could record it before it gets too hard for her." "Record it," Max repeated softly. "She says it's her way of leaving something behind that can still talk to God even if she can't." That afternoon, Max found himself outside room 214 again. He stood there, motionless, one hand in his coat pocket, the other gripping a tablet he didn't need. The faint melody leaked through the door. Weak, halting, but beautiful. He took a quiet breath and stepped inside. Jenna looked up, startled but curious. Her mother rose immediately. "Dr. Ripley, right? I didn't know you'd—" I was just passing by, he said quickly. I heard the music. Jenna tilted her head. Do you like it? He hesitated. The right answer seemed too personal. It's honest, he said finally. Jenna smiled, a slow, knowing smile far too wise for her years. That's what music's supposed to be. There was silence, the kind that feels full, not empty. He looked around, drawings taped to the wall, IV bags swaying like pendulums of time, the faint scent of lemon sanitizer and lavender lotion, and in the middle of it all, this little girl, pale, luminous, utterly unafraid. Would you like to hear the rest? She asked suddenly. Before he could answer, she began again, this time louder, braver. If my words fall quiet, let them echo in your light. And if I fade too soon, God, hold my voice tonight. Her mother covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking. When the song ended, the silence that followed was different. Heavy, sacred, the kind of silence that made even the machines seem to pause. Max swallowed hard. You wrote that? Jenna nodded. For God, and maybe for Mom, but mostly for whoever doesn't believe in songs anymore. He froze. Why would someone stop believing in songs? He asked quietly. Because they forgot who gave them a voice. Her answer pierced through him like sunlight through frost. That night, Max couldn't sleep. He sat by his piano, an instrument that had collected more dust than sound over the years. His daughter had once played it. He remembered her small hands pressing the keys with the same intensity Jenna sang with. That memory was both gift and punishment. He pressed one key, softly. The note lingered, aching in the air. Then another. And before he realized what he was doing, he was playing her melody. The girl's song. His fingers trembled as he whispered the lyrics. God, hold my voice. The same words that had once come from a hospital room now filled his home. He stopped suddenly, exhaling a sound that was half sob, half relief. Somewhere inside him, something had cracked open. The next morning, he called Nurse Callan. He said, I want that girl recorded. Find a way. I'll cover whatever it costs. Callan paused, surprised. You mean Jenna? Yes, her song, her voice. You think it'll help her? He didn't answer right away. He looked out his window at the falling snow, his reflection ghosted against the glass. He said, it might help both of us. If you had only one song left to sing, one thing the world would remember you by, what would it be about? Hope? Forgiveness? Faith? Share your answer in the comments below.
For the next several days, Dr. Max Ripley threw himself back into his routine as if work could cauterize what that little girl's song had opened. His assistants noticed. He moved faster, spoke shorter, scheduled surgeries he didn't need to perform. He told himself productivity was proof that the world still obeyed logic. But late at night, logic lost every argument. In the silence of his penthouse, that small trembling voice replayed like a heartbeat he couldn't quiet. If I fade too soon, God, hold my voice tonight. He poured another drink, though he no longer tasted it. He stared at his daughter's photograph, frozen at 7 years old, a gap-toothed smile that time could never close. He whispered, almost angrily, why her song and not yours? At St. Barrow's, Jenna's health shifted like the February weather, one day sunshine, the next a storm. Her white cell counts dipped again. The nurses moved with practiced gentleness. Through it all, she kept humming, recording rough versions of her song into a borrowed hospital tablet. Emily watched from the corner, her faith wavering in the fluorescent light. You should rest, she whispered. I can rest later, Jenna replied. Voices don't live forever. The nurses smiled at her courage, but Emily caught the exhaustion beneath it. Jenna's voice was thinning, like silk stretched too tight. That afternoon, Max arrived unannounced. He carried a small black case, the portable mic and recorder he'd ordered overnight. He told himself he was following through on a promise, nothing more. Emily looked up in surprise. "Dr. Ripley?" He nodded briskly. "I thought we could try capturing her song. Simple recording, minimal stress." Jenna's face lit up. "You came back?" "I said I would," he lied. He hadn't actually said it, but somehow she'd heard it anyway. They set up the mic by her bedside. The little red light blinked on. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded, eyes closed, breathing shallow but steady. Then she sang. This time her voice was weaker but truer. Every crack carried honesty. Every pause held prayer. When the final note faded, he found his hands trembling over the stop button. Emily whispered, "She's been waiting for someone to believe her song mattered." He met her gaze, then looked away. Everyone's song matters. But he didn't believe it, not yet. That night, he received a call from one of his hospital directors. "Max, we saw the invoice for pediatric recording equipment. The charity board's already tight. Are you sure this expense?" "Approve it." "It's mine personally," he interrupted. "Are you getting sentimental in your old age?" the director joked. Max hung up without answering. The next morning, he avoided St. Barrows. He told himself boundaries were necessary. Doctors weren't supposed to get attached. He drowned himself in meetings, contracts, numbers, things that didn't sing. But attachment has a way of waiting. That evening, an email arrived from Nurse Callan. "Jenna's recording came out beautifully. She wanted you to have the first copy." Attached was an audio file. He hovered over it for nearly an hour. When he finally pressed play, her voice filled the sterile office speakers, small and defiant against the mechanical hum of air conditioning. He stopped halfway through. He couldn't listen, not yet. Because in her fight to be heard, she was reminding him of everything he'd buried: the daughter, the faith, the part of himself that once believed medicine could heal the soul. He shut his laptop and leaned back, fists clenched. "Enough," he muttered. Days passed. He didn't visit. Jenna noticed that. One afternoon, she asked Nurse Callan quietly, "Did I sing wrong?" The nurse smiled gently. "No, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups just get scared of the things that heal them." Jenna thought about that, and then she whispered, "Then I'll sing louder." That evening, the halls echoed again with her fragile melody. A few nurses cried behind clipboards. Emily held her hand, mouthing the words through tears. Outside, snow was falling again, soft, persistent, like grace refusing to stop. Across town, Max sat alone in his car, parked beside the river. The audio file played through his phone speaker, low but clear. He let it finish this time. When silence followed, he found himself whispering, "Maybe you're right, kid. Maybe voices don't die. They just change who hears them." He exhaled, long and unsteady. Then he turned the key and drove back toward St. Barrows. He didn't know what he would say when he saw her again. But sometimes resistance ends not with words, but with showing up.
A blizzard rolled through Beacon 2 nights later, thick snow muffling every sound except the wind's low hum. By dawn, the Hudson Valley was sealed in white silence. Roads were closed, power flickered across town, and the hospital generator groaned under the weight of it all. Inside St. Barrows, everything slowed. Nurses pulled double shifts, the cafeteria shut down, and the children's ward became a world within a world. Flickering lights, warm blankets, whispered prayers. Dr. Max Ripley hadn't planned to be there. He'd come early that morning to drop off an updated treatment file for another patient. By the time he realized the storm was worsening, every exit was buried in snow. "Looks like you're staying the night, Doctor," Nurse Callan said, handing him a thermos of coffee. "Generators running on backup. We're all camping in." He nodded, glancing toward the dim corridor that led to room 214. "How's Jenna?" "Breathing's rougher today, but she's smiling anyway. She's been waiting for you." He hesitated. For me? She said you still need a second verse. Room 214 glowed by candlelight. Battery candles lined the windowsill, their little flickers painting the walls gold. Jenna sat propped against her pillows, an oxygen tube curling like ribbon across her cheek. Emily dozed in the chair beside her, her hands still around her daughter's. When Max stepped in, Jenna looked up and grinned weakly. You got snowed in too? Seems that way, he said, managing a half smile. How's the patient? Still singing. I can tell. He set down his coat and glanced at the recording mic still resting on the bedside table. You mind if I check the equipment? Power might flicker. Sure, she said, but if it goes out, you have to stay till it comes back. He looked at her, unsure whether she was joking. Her tone was so matter-of-fact it disarmed him. That might be a long wait, he murmured. Good, she said simply. Hours passed. The blizzard pressed against the windows like a living thing, whispering and roaring in turns. The ward grew quiet. Only the rhythmic hiss of oxygen and the steady beeping of monitors filled the space. Max stayed. He told himself he was monitoring vitals, but his chair slowly drifted closer to Jenna's bed. Do you ever get scared? He asked finally. She thought about it. Sometimes. But I tell myself God doesn't get scared, so maybe he's brave enough for both of us. He nodded, slowly. You sound like someone twice your age. Mom says I've had a lot of practice in short years. She gave a small laugh that turned into a cough. He adjusted her oxygen flow with gentle precision. Easy, he said quietly. When she caught her breath, she whispered, You play piano, right? He froze. Who told you that? I saw the music app on your tablet when you came last time. Do you ever play your feelings out instead of thinking them? Her words were innocent, but they hit deep. Not in a long time, he admitted. Maybe that's why you look tired. He looked up sharply, surprised by her perception. You notice everything, don't you? Only the things people try to hide. Later that night, the generator gave a low groan, lights flickering into darkness. Emergency glow panels came on, casting everyone in soft blue light. Guess it's story time, Jenna said, smiling faintly. No power means no TV. He chuckled quietly. You want a story? No, you tell one. Something you haven't told anyone. He hesitated, staring at the snow-frosted window. Then slowly, he began. I used to have a little girl. Her name was Lily. She sang, too. I used to think I could save her from anything, but life doesn't ask for permission before it breaks you. Jenna listened, eyes wide but gentle. What happened to her? She got sick. Fast. I tried every treatment, every option, every miracle I could buy. He stopped, voice cracking. It wasn't enough. Silence filled the room. Only the storm spoke outside. Jenna reached out a trembling hand and rested it over his. That's why you understand songs like mine, she whispered. You're still trying to give your voice back to God. He looked at her small hand, so warm, so light, and felt something shift, an invisible thread pulling two wounded hearts closer. They stayed that way for a long time. Doctor and child. Grief and grace sharing the same breath. Somewhere in the distance, the storm began to fade. Jenna broke the silence. When the power comes back, will you help me finish my song? He nodded. I will. Promise? Promise. And though he didn't know it yet, that single word, promise, was going to change everything that came after. Sometimes life traps us in rooms we never planned to enter, only so we'll face the truth we've been running from. Have you ever been snowed in by your own emotions until you had to face them? Tell me what you learned. Morning arrived pale and brittle. The blizzard had ended, leaving Beacon coated in glassy snow and silence. Inside St. Barrow's, the power returned with a sigh of relief. Lights flickered back to life, coffee brewed somewhere down the hall, and life resumed its fragile rhythm. In room 214, Jenna was awake before the nurses. She sat cross-legged, notebook open, lips moving soundlessly as she scribbled new lines. When Dr. Max Ripley entered, still in the same wrinkled shirt from the night before, she looked up and smiled. "You kept your promise." He nodded. "I said I would." She pushed the notebook toward him. Second verse. He read the shaky handwriting. "If the night forgets my name, whisper it in heaven's flame. If I can't breathe, then let my song find the place where souls belong." He swallowed hard. "That's beautiful," she said. "I dreamt it. Maybe Lily helped." He froze. "Who told you that name?" "You did," she said, smiling faintly. "Last night, you talked in your sleep after you told your story." He stared at her, guilt flooding through him. He hadn't realized he'd spoken aloud. "Lily was my daughter." "I know." "I remind you of her," he whispered. "I hope that doesn't hurt too much." Later that morning, Emily stepped out to meet a social worker, leaving Max and Jenna alone. He sat beside her bed while she traced the microphone cord between her fingers. "Do you miss her every day?" Jenna asked quietly. "Yes," he said, "but I pretend I don't. Makes the world easier to walk through." She nodded slowly. "Mom pretends too. When she thinks I'm asleep, she cries into the blanket." The honesty between them was gentle, without pity, two souls comparing scars. "Lily used to draw angels," he murmured, "said they were people who sang too high for the world to hear." Jenna's eyes lit up. "Then she's teaching me. I can feel it when I sing." In the afternoon, Nurse Callan brought lunch and the small box Max had asked for. Inside were 2 bracelets, one gold, one silver. "Lily's," he explained quietly. "I kept them in storage for years. I thought maybe—" Jenna studied the smaller silver one, the charm shaped like a treble clef. "Can I borrow it till my next song?" He nodded. "It's yours." She slid it onto her thin wrist where it dangled beside her IV line. "Now she can sing with me." Something in his chest tightened and softened all at once. That evening, Emily returned to find the two of them laughing softly over the microphone setup. Jenna was teasing him about his piano playing. "Dr. Ripley can't keep tempo," she giggled. He feigned defense. "I'm a surgeon. My timing's perfect." "Not in music," she said, still laughing. Emily leaned against the doorway, watching the man who once looked carved from stone, now smiling like a father again. For the first time in months, the room felt light. After Jenna fell asleep, Max sat by the window, the snow outside melting into faint rivulets on the glass. Emily joined him quietly. "She talks about you," she said. "Says you're the first person who listens without trying to fix her." "I don't know if I'm helping or making it harder." "You're giving her something to sing too," Emily replied. "Hope sounds different in every voice." He turned to her, eyes damp. "I thought I buried mine with my daughter. Then maybe Jenna's song is your shovel." Her words lingered. Sometimes healing arrived disguised as pain. Later that night, while checking the monitor, Max found Jenna's notebook open on the table. Beside the lyrics was a page covered in uneven handwriting. "To Dr. Ripley, when I can't sing anymore, don't be sad. You said doctors fix broken things, right? Then fix people's hearts with music. That's how you fix mine." He closed the notebook slowly, fighting the ache in his throat. On the cover, she'd drawn 3 figures, herself, her mom, and a tall man playing piano with angel wings behind him. He stayed by her bedside till dawn. Sometimes, the truth we hide becomes the bridge someone else needs to cross. Whose story helped you face your own? Share it below.
Someone might need it tonight.
Morning in Beacon came golden for the first time in weeks. Sunlight spilled through the hospital windows, pooling on the floor of room 214 like a quiet blessing. Jenna Clinton was humming again, voice small but bright. Her silver bracelet flashed every time she lifted her hand, the little treble clef charm catching the light. Dr. Max Ripley entered carrying 2 cups of cocoa instead of coffee. "Doctor's orders," he said. "Chocolate therapy." Jenna laughed. "You finally prescribed something I like." He set 1 cup beside her bed, taking the chair opposite. The air between them felt lighter, no longer doctor and patient, but companions sharing borrowed time. That day they worked on her song together. Max had brought a small keyboard, its keys yellowed from years of disuse. When he plugged it into the portable speaker, a faint buzz filled the room. "Okay," he said. "You lead, I'll follow." She nodded, closing her eyes. Her thin voice carried the first verse, and he followed with gentle chords, hesitant at first, then certain. The room filled with music that felt alive, imperfect, and human. Emily stood at the doorway, hands pressed to her mouth, watching the sound mend 2 broken hearts at once. When the song ended, she clapped softly. "See? You do have timing." He smiled. "Only when I'm following you." Later, when nurses came for her treatment, Max lingered outside the curtain. He could hear her humming even through the beeps and sighs of the machines. There was something healing in it, like the sound was holding the walls together. When they were done, she whispered, "Can we try again tomorrow?" "Tomorrow and every day after. That's a promise." That evening, the sky blushed over the Hudson. The storm was gone, and from her window, Jenna could see the pink reflection on the snow. "Dr. Ripley," she said, watching the colors fade, "do you think heaven looks like this?" He followed her gaze. "Maybe heaven borrows sunsets from children like you." She smiled. "Then Lily must paint a lot of skies." The name no longer hurt the way it once had. It landed softly now, like a memory allowed to breathe. He nodded. "Yes, I think she does." For the first time in years, Max stayed after visiting hours. The hospital grew quiet around them, machines clicking, footsteps fading, night settling like a lullaby. He played piano on the keyboard while Jenna drew in her notebook. Clouds, musical notes, wings. "What are you making?" he asked. "An album cover. It's called Voices That Don't End. Your track, too." He chuckled. "Only track 2? You still have to earn track 1. He bowed playfully. "Challenge accepted." She yawned mid-breath. "I'm glad you didn't stop believing in songs." He looked at her, the dim light reflecting in her eyes. "You're the reason I remembered how." When she fell asleep, he closed the notebook gently and stayed by her side, listening to the faint rhythm of her breathing and the distant hum of the generator. For the first time in a long while, he didn't feel alone. The silence felt full again, like the world was quietly singing along. He whispered to the darkness, "Thank you, Lily." And maybe, somewhere beyond the veil of sound, a small voice answered. Sometimes healing doesn't roar. It hums softly beside you until you realize the ache has changed its shape. Who helped you remember hope when you'd stopped believing in it? Tell me about them. By the time February crept into Beacon, the snow had turned to slush and the sunlight felt tired. The hospital's halls smelled faintly of disinfectant and coffee again, ordinary life resuming around extraordinary pain. In room 214, Jenna's laughter was still there, but thinner now, like music played through cracked speakers. She tired easily. Her breathing breaks grew longer, her mother's eyes darker with quiet dread. Dr. Max Ripley saw the change before anyone said a word. The new scans told the truth. Her body was slipping faster than they'd hoped. He stood in the hallway, staring at the monitor, jaw locked, a war behind his eyes. Every instinct screamed to fight harder, to fix it. But another voice, smaller and sadder, whispered that not every melody was meant to last. That afternoon, he walked into her room with a folder in his hand and too much weight in his shoulders. Jenna looked up from her sketchbook. "Bad news?" He hesitated. there's something we should talk about. Emily straightened in the chair beside her daughter. What is it? Max sat down. His voice was steady, but his eyes weren't. The latest results show the tumors are spreading faster than the treatment can hold them. We can keep her comfortable, but... He didn't finish. He couldn't. Emily's breath hitched. Jenna looked between them, small and calm, as if she already knew. So, I might have to sing sooner than we planned? Emily broke. She leaned forward, clutching her daughter's hands, tears spilling unchecked. Don't you dare talk like that, baby. You keep singing here, you hear me? Max turned away, pretending to check the monitor, his own vision blurred. There's always a chance. We could try... Dr. Ripley, Jenna interrupted gently. You told me songs don't have to be long to be beautiful. He looked at her then, and the steadiness in her eyes undid him. The next day, he didn't show up. Not in the morning, not in the afternoon. He hid in his office staring at Lily's old photo, guilt gnawing at him. He'd promised Jenna another tomorrow, and tomorrow had betrayed him. Nurse Callan found him there, silent. She's asking for you, she said. I can't. Not like this. I'm supposed to save her, and I can't even slow it down. Maybe saving doesn't mean what you think it does. Her words hit hard. Still, he didn't move. That evening, Emily appeared at his door, eyes red but voice firm. You think hiding will make it easier for her? You're the only one she still believes will keep his promise. He finally rose, shoulders heavy. When he entered room 214, Jenna looked smaller than ever beneath the blanket. The bracelet hung loose around her wrist. You left, she said softly. I'm sorry. I wasn't mad. I was just waiting. He sat beside her bed, guilt spilling through every breath. I don't know how to do this again, Jenna. She blinked up at him. Do what? Lose someone I love. The room stilled. The heart monitor beeped slowly, a fragile rhythm. You didn't lose her. You found me. He bowed his head, tears slipping free. And I can't bear to lose you too. You won't, she said. You'll just have to listen a little harder when I sing. He let out a broken laugh, half a sob. You sound just like Lily. Then maybe God recycles his best voices. The silence that followed was thick with things neither dared to say. For a long time, they just sat there, her hand in his, two lives briefly in tune before the inevitable rest. Outside, the sky over Beacon dimmed into deep violet. Inside, a monitor beeped, a steady lullaby. Jenna whispered, Promise you'll finish the song. I promise. And when you play it, don't cry the sad parts. Smile, okay? He nodded, unable to speak. She smiled faintly. Good. Then I'll hear it.
Beacon was gray the next morning. The snow had melted into streams that whispered along the curbs, the sky hanging low over the Hudson like a closed lid. Room 214 was still. Machines hummed softly. The little treble clef bracelet rested on the nightstand beside a folded drawing. Jenna had fallen asleep just before sunrise, her breathing shallow, her small hand tangled in her mother's. Dr. Max Ripley stood in the doorway, unable to move closer. He felt the weight of every heartbeat in the room, hers, Emily's, his own, a fragile symphony hanging by one thread. By midday, the inevitable came quietly. No alarms, no chaos, just a single sigh that slipped into silence. Emily's cry broke the stillness. Max reached her instinctively, catching her as she collapsed against him. They held on, both shaking, until even tears ran out. When the nurse gently covered Jenna with the sheet, Max stepped back, chest hollow. He wanted to run, to flee the echo of every promise he couldn't keep, but something stopped him. Her notebook lay open on the bed, the last page marked with a single line in her crooked handwriting. "If I stop singing, you start." He didn't leave the hospital for 3 days. He stayed in the music therapy room, hunched over the old keyboard, her melody looping endlessly in his mind. His colleagues whispered that he'd broken again. Maybe he had. On the third night, Emily found him there, the song playing softly through the speakers. "You can't live in this room," she said gently. "I don't know how to walk out of it. It's the only place she still feels near." Emily walked closer. She didn't want to be a memory, Max. She wanted to be a song. He looked up, eyes rimmed red. "Then help me make it one." They spent the following weeks recording her voice, fragments from the hospital, phone clips, small echoes of her laughter. Max wrote the piano accompaniment, filling in spaces where she'd left silence. Each note felt like a conversation. Late one night, while mixing the final track, he whispered into the microphone. Track 1, Jenna Clinton. Track 2, Ripley. Track 3, everyone who ever lost their song and learned to sing again. He hit record. His hands trembled over the keys, but the sound that came out was steady, fragile, human, and whole. Weeks later, he stood on the stage of the Beacon Auditorium for a charity event. The lights dimmed, 1,000 faces waited in silence. On the screen behind him was a photograph, Jenna smiling with her silver bracelet gleaming. He stepped to the microphone. She wrote a song called "God Hold My Voice." "I used to think it was a prayer for strength. Now I know it was a gift, a reminder that hope doesn't vanish when the music stops. It just changes key." Then he played. The first notes floated out, trembling at first, then blooming into fullness. Her recorded voice joined him halfway through, small and pure. The audience sat motionless, the sound weaving through grief and grace, until the final note lingered like breath. When it ended, no one clapped at first. Then a single person stood, then another, until the whole hall rose to its feet in silence, tears glinting under the lights. Backstage afterward, Emily approached him with a small box. Inside was the silver bracelet. "She'd want you to have it," she said, "for the next child who forgets what hope sounds like." "I'll keep singing," he said, just above a whisper. That night, walking home under a rain-clean sky, Max stopped by the river. The water reflected the city's glow, rippled, imperfect, beautiful. He whispered to the wind, "Jenna, Lily, can you hear it?" A breeze swept through the trees, soft as a reply. And for the first time in years, he smiled without breaking. Sometimes the miracle isn't that someone lived, it's that their song keeps others alive. Whose voice still echoes in your life long after they're gone? Share their name below. Let their song keep playing.
Spring came late to Beacon that year, but when it did, it came in color. Cherry blossoms spilling over the sidewalks, the river catching light like liquid glass. Dr. Max Ripley stood on the steps of St. Barrow's Children's Hospital, looking up at the new banner stretched across the entrance. The Jenna Clinton Music Wing, voices that don't end. Children's laughter drifted through the open doors, mingling with the sound of a piano from inside. A volunteer group was rehearsing in the new therapy room, Guitars, violins, soft singing. Every note carried her name somewhere inside it. He walked through the halls, sunlight glinting off the bracelet on his wrist. The silver charm tapped against his pulse, steady and bright. In the center of the new ward hung a framed photograph. Jenna sitting on her bed, microphone in hand, eyes half closed in that fierce, quiet way she had when she sang. Beneath it, the words she wrote in her notebook. "If I stop singing, you start." Visitors paused there often. Nurses, parents, patients, all of them listening to the silence that somehow still sounded like her. Later that afternoon, Max set up his keyboard in the therapy room. A group of children gathered around, some bald from chemo, others pale from long treatments. He smiled at them gently. "You know, I used to think music was just sound, but someone once taught me it's what makes silence bearable." He pressed the first key. The melody of "God Hold My Voice" filled the room again, soft and sure. The children listened, some swaying, one little boy humming along off-key, and Max felt something he hadn't in years, peace that didn't hurt. When the song ended, a nurse entered with an envelope. She said, "This came for you." Inside was a letter from Emily Clinton, written in looping blue ink. "Max, I moved to Maine last month. The ocean's calm here, and I played Jenna's song for the waves. They always listen. I wanted you to know that you kept your promise. Every child who walks through those doors now carries a piece of her. Thank you for giving her voice wings." He folded the letter carefully, eyes damp but smiling. "Thank you for lending her to me," he whispered. That evening, he returned to the Beacon Auditorium for the anniversary concert. The hall was packed. On stage, behind him, the screen showed a montage, children from hospitals across the country singing Jenna's song in their own languages, their own harmonies. The video ended with a single clip. Jenna in her hospital bed, microphone trembling in her hand, whispering, "God, hold my voice." Then her laughter. The audience was silent, reverent. Max stepped up to the microphone. "I once thought miracles came from medicine," he said quietly. "But sometimes they come from a song sung by a child, brave enough to believe it still matters." He paused, breath steady. And she was right. It did. He began to play. Her voice joined his again, that small, perfect voice, woven through the speakers like light through glass. The audience rose, some with tears, some with smiles, everyone holding a piece of something secret. When the final chord faded, Max whispered into the mic, "For Jenna, for Lily, for every voice that refuses to end." Afterwards, he walked outside into the night. Beacon was alive, music spilling from open doors, people laughing, street lights glowing like lanterns. He looked up at the stars, hand resting over the bracelet. For the first time since he lost his daughter, he felt not emptiness but presence, as though both girls were there somewhere between the notes, between the breaths, between the living and the remembered. He smiled softly and whispered, "Thank you for holding our voices." Then he turned and walked home under the singing wind. Hope doesn't always shout. Sometimes it sings through the ones we lose. What's the song you'd want the world to remember you by? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might be the melody someone else needs tonight.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you loved this story, you will definitely love the next one. It's more intriguing than you can ever imagine. So go ahead and watch it now. Click on the image on your screen right away to watch the next one. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. It helps and encourages us to share the best human interest stories you'd love.